Hello and welcome to episode 68 of the Rhody podcast. I'm joined by URI legend Abdul Fox. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Happy to be here and glad to connect with you and talk some Rhody hoops.
Yeah, let's do it. Thank you again for taking the time this afternoon, again to talk about your career and for listeners to somewhat get an understanding of who you are and
Yep.
what kind of player you were. I'm certainly looking forward to learning more about your journey at URI and to where you are now. So thank you again.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, of course. So first off, I know you stopped by Kingston not too long ago for the Providence game, as we were just talking about. How did it feel to be back on campus and really just embrace that Ryan Center atmosphere?
That was a nostalgia. I unfortunately didn't get to play in the Ryan Center. I grew up on the Keeney, and that game was always at the Duncan Center. So it was nice to be in that atmosphere to really feel the energy that a campus could bring to that game, which is such a big game for us, being that Battle of the Ocean State. So brought back a lot of memories. My first year at Rhode Island was the year we had the fight. So I sat out that year and was kind of in limbo to go into the fight, stay out of the fight. So it was just great to be in that atmosphere and watch the kids compete at a high level.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the best games in really New England, just when that weekend comes along, the battle for the Ocean State. So it's definitely a lot of fun. My freshman year, I was sitting in the ruckus, but like I said, now I had the chance to be in the media. So it was a lot of fun being on both sides,
Yes. I can imagine.
Yeah, for sure. What do you remember about? I know you mentioned a few, but what do you remember about playing in some of those Providence games?
Well, we had an epic game, double overtime in the Duncan Center. We beat them. I had a career high 25, that year. So it was just great to be in that building, that energy, and perform at such a high level. My senior year, we kind of struggled. They had a really good team as well. But again, I always enjoyed playing against them. And I had a pet peeve because I went to Providence basketball camp out of high school, and Rick Barnes was, the head coach then. I wasn't a big high recruit, so I was one of the only campers playing with the college players, but I didn't really have a big name. And he came to me, at the end of camp, said, would you like to be a Friar? I was like, oh, I would love to be a PC Friar. But when they did a scout report on me, there was nothing on me. I wasn't that good. So his response was, the rumors is that you're a problem kid. So I remember that. And every time I played Providence, it was just personal based on what Rick Barnes had said to me. So I always probably averaged about 20 above every time I played Providence. So it was personal.
Yeah, I feel like you see that so much in basketball. It's such a mental game. You sort of have a chip on your shoulder when certain opponents come into town. You want to just play your best basketball. So that's really cool.
Absolutely.
I want to start from the beginning, just so people can learn a little bit more about you and your career, if you don't mind. So I understand, you grew up playing football from what I heard from a recent interview you did, and actually didn't start hooping until around 15 years old or so. Can you just speak a little bit to that and, how you got attracted to the game of basketball?
It's funny, if you can kind of look, there's a bone in my wrist that's bent, that sticks up.
Oh,
I
wow.
got hit with it and I broke my wrist. And my parents said, that's it. You can't play football anymore. So then I picked up a basketball just at a gym class. I had a gentleman that was in my gym class asked me to come play on his church team. That was the first time I really picked up a basketball. But again, I just fell in love with the process of wanting to be good. I just remember always being 12th man on the team and playing the very few minutes at the end of the game. And I just progressively got better and better where, high school seemed realistic to play, then college seemed like realistic. And then obviously the ultimate pinnacle is to try to play, a professional at the next level. So it was just those baby steps that allowed me to, progress and be the player that I was. But I was a late bloomer.
Yeah, for sure. It's really funny because I always say that everything happens for a reason. So, again, if that injury may not have occurred, you may not have been a star at URI or even playing college hoops. So it's kind of crazy how life works out like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, moving along, I just want to jump into, a little bit of your playing career from a young age, at the high school level. I know you grew up in Queens from what I saw. I'm a Long Island kid myself. So can you just, can you just talk about growing up there, in Queens and maybe just a little bit about playing at the high school level?
So once I got introduced to basketball, I'm very fortunate. My mentor or my, guru was Kenny Smith's brother, Vincent Smith. So I grew up under his tutelage, watching Kenny during his Carolina days, then Kenny Anderson coming up with them and always training with them. So, I mean, just from a basketball IQ, I had a great mentor, always feeding me the right things, fundamentals, triple threat, not too many dribble moves, just put the ball in the basket and run back on defense. But obviously growing up in New York and that concrete and having always to battle, playgrounds and, earn your respect, I kind of grew up in that atmosphere, just trying to always prove myself. And I just kind of took that into prep school, where I went to a prep school really known for academics, not really athletics. So again, I'm still having to prove myself. Can I go Division I? Can I compete at that level? So I always had that chip of always just trying to, prove that I belong on the court.
Yeah, that's awesome. I also just wanted to ask about New York, because I feel like you so much often hear about, how so many guards are produced out of New York City. And it's really just that environment. People are going to the playgrounds or going to the parks. And it's a whole different ballpark when you're there. I haven't had the chance to check it out, like the Rucker or anything like that. But it just seems like such a cool environment. You know what I mean?
It's competitive. It's competitive. Unfortunately, I don't have any tricks. I'm not trying to make you fall. My job was to put the ball in the basket and play defense. So I always approach the game from a fundamental aspect of how can I get the most out of it with the less amount of energy and dribble moves. So I'm not your typical New York with all the swag. It's just dribble and one or two moves, and that ball is in the basket.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I love doing this podcast because I really get to learn about, different people and different backgrounds and everything like that. But a question that I want to ask you that I've asked, a lot of the guests that I've had on is, what is your why, or what motivates you?
In sports or within the career now?
I guess both in general, or just in life.
Well, it's a good one. I'll probably say, servant leadership, giving back to whether it's my community, whether it's in the business I'm in now, and building relationship with clients and members, trying to keep them healthy. And that's probably always been, even when I played basketball, I always seemed happy. People say, oh, you're different. You're happy. You play with a different swag. And I just always want to be a positive person and leave an impact, whether it's through basketball, whether it's through sports, whether it's just, if I meet someone for the first time traveling in the airport. I've always had that kind of energy about trying to make the best of the people or the time I'm with someone. So I would say that would be my why. Servant leadership.
For sure. Yeah, I get so many different answers. A lot of people say just, doing it for their family or for the love of the game. But I think that's the first time I just heard giving back to the community. It's so simple, but not that many people think about that. And always just kind of having a smile on your face, whether it is in the business world or, on the court, on and off the court, really. So I think that's a really great answer that you gave there.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I want to get into more now of your college career. So you initially committed to St. Peter's. So for those who may be tuning into this, if you tuned into March Madness last year, you know what the Peacocks are. Can you just talk about your decision to go there coming out of high school?
So, again, going to a school predominantly known for academics, my first choice back then was Georgia Tech. They had come and saw me play in New York, Coach Cremens. But I came out at the same time as a gentleman named Kenny Anderson. So when Kenny Anderson signed with Georgia Tech, they said, listen, we're good. We got a great recruiting class. Let us know if we can help you. So at that point, I really didn't have any high Division I, scholarships on the table. I almost went to Division II, Springfield College in Massachusetts. And another high school coach recommended that the St. Peter's, come to see me play. And that was really the only Division I offer when it came to actually signing. I had a couple of visits. I took a visit to Northeastern. I took a visit to SMU. But St. Peter's was the only school that I had an offer, and my dean of students was an alum at St. Peter's, where I went to prep school. So it was a good fit. It was close enough for my family to see me play. I didn't really know much about the MAC. Back then they had Lionel Simmons, LaSalle was very good. Fordham was good. And I was just happy to go Division I. That's all you want to do when you're coming up is you want to play Division I. And then, they had a good schedule. They played Seton Hall. They played some good schools. So that's where I went my freshman year.
Yeah. Have you had the chance to go back in the last year or two and check out the program or anything?
Well, the coach that had that big run is a Queens kid. So he came up under me under the same basketball program. So I was, elated to see them do so well. Every once in a while I run into them. My brother, who came behind me, ended up playing at Manhattan College. And St. Peter's is in the same conference. So I got to see the AD and a couple, players back then when he was competing at Manhattan College. But I haven't been back. I'm sorry, Jersey City has just evolved. We used to call it Dirty City, but it's probably evolved into something real nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. I haven't had the chance to go, but I saw some videos on how small the campus was. And You know how
Yes.
the entire community essentially revolved around this program and what Holloway did with it last year. Was really impressive and really cool to see. Honestly, I'm a big fan of obviously college hoops, so to watch
It's,
them
it's
afar, it was
literally
cool.
it's literally 3 traffic lights. If you go 3 traffic lights, you've already passed St. Peter's. Like it's really that long of a campus. It was amazing, but it was
Yeah.
a great environment. It was a great environment.
Yeah, that's awesome. Moving on to Rhode Island, I know at the end of that season you entered the transfer portal. You actually sat the following season, but what went into the decision to transfer to Rhode Island and really just the transfer portal in general?
So when I went to that Providence College basketball camp, I really got to get to know some of the players because I competed with them. And I got to know Abdul Fox, Eric Murdoch was still, coming up, and Carl Owens. So I became good friends with Samshadeen. And then when I struggled at St. Peter's, I had some, a couple fallout with some of the players. I had some conflict, and the coach was very verbally abusive. And I had never really experienced that throughout my career coming up, whether it was through high school or just any of my coaches were never that verbally abusive. So I decided that I didn't want to be in that environment. Abdul Samshadeen from Providence College picked up the phone and called the University of Rhode Island for me.
Oh, wow.
Said, I got this kid. I think he's going to be good. He wants to transfer. And I think it was Tim O'Shea. Said, okay, get his transcript, and then we set up a visit. So they didn't really recruit me. And I just showed up on campus. I went to prep school, so I knew how to come, for it. Was, to me, like it was a job interview. So I wore a shirt and tie on my visit, and I had transcripts. I had good grades. And I was, broadcasted to be a good player. I wasn't an all freshman team in the MAC. It was just like, okay, this kid has potential. And then Rhode Island took a chance on me. They took a chance on me. And that's how I ended up in Kingston.
That's interesting. I feel like I've never heard of, a crosstown rival helping out another. It's just, I feel like that's unheard of. So that's a really cool story.
I'm still good friends with Samshadeen. To this day, it was all because he had just come out of school, was drafted by Seattle, had an agent, and he just picked up the phone. I'm sitting at his house, man. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, again, usually you hear stories like that and the school takes a chance on you and you come in as a walk-on or you redshirt, and you did end up redshirting that year.
Yeah.
But to play immediately after that season and get some big minutes, first to start off the bench and then eventually evolve into a starter, it's really impressive, how the turn of events, have worked out that way.
Yeah, the 1 year I sat out, they struggled. That next year we went to, the game before the Garden and the NIT. I came off the bench. We had a great supporting cast, whether we were starting or not starting. It didn't really matter to me.
Right.
And it was just great to be in that environment, on that campus and the energy and Keeney and just, my fellow teammates. It was a great sophomore campaign.
Yeah, I go to URI now, but my dad went to URI in mid to late 80s, so 87 he graduated right before the 88 run. So I've heard the stories a little bit, but I really haven't heard much about, the early 90s, sort of that in-between transition gap between when they made the run in 88 to, the late 90s and 98 with Catino and Wheeler. So it's nice to kind of gain some knowledge and learn a little bit more about those teams. You played there for 3 seasons from 91 to 94, as I mentioned. Your first 2 seasons, you weren't a starter, but you played nearly every minute. Contributing, or every game contributing off the bench, big minutes. You led the team in scoring points, even coming off the bench. And then as a senior in 93, 94, started every game and led the team in scoring. So can you just talk a little bit about some of those seasons at Rhode Island and that run?
So my junior year, so when we went to the NCAA tournament, and what made us so good, we had 2 people in each position. We had 2 point guards, we had 2 guards, we had 2 small forwards. So the competitiveness to wanting to be on the court was always at a high level because there was someone in your position that was, to me, just as good.
Right.
The one thing, not that I dislike, but I think there's a gap between that Catino. Catino sat out my junior year.
Mm-hmm.
So I've watched him kind of grow. But that conference then, Calipari was at UMass. John Chaney was still at Temple. Aaron McKee, Eddie Jones. Yinka Dare was at GW. Rutgers in West Virginia was still in that conference.
Yep.
So one of the things I try to tell people, even this younger generation, my junior year, I did not start. I was 9th on the team in minutes. So it wasn't like I played 40 minutes. There was 8 people in front of me that played more minutes. I was 2nd team all conference. The whole first team went to the NBA.
Wow.
Aaron McKee, Eddie Jones, Marcus Camby, and Yinka Dare. So when some kids say, "Oh, well, the coach is not playing me," I can't agree with that because I was ninth on the team in minutes. I was second all conference, and we had a great team, and we excelled and win. So I try to help kids paint that picture. It's not always being a starter. It's still, can you maximize your minutes? So if I played 15 minutes, I tend to have 17 points. It's like, well, how's that happening? I put in the work beforehand. So when I got in the game, I wasn't worried about being cold. I know I took 500 shots or 1,000 shots 2-3 days before. Yeah. So when it came to kind of go in the game, I had no problem, letting it go early. And then I played defense, and I tried to do whatever I could to help us win. Sometimes scoring was a majority. Sometimes it was, guarding the best two guard in the conference at that time. It was whatever we needed to do to win.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point there. I think coming off the bench in basketball is a really important role that a lot of people kind of oversee. Your job is sort of to be that next man up, to have that mentality and to carry those minutes. When the starters are struggling or when there's some fatigue and they're not, exceeding their expectations, you got to come in and perform. You got to in the game. You really see them come in off the bench, and the coach really unloads the depth later in the game. So to have that role, at least for the first 2 seasons, and kind of adjust to the system that Coach Skinner was running, that's really impressive because, like I said, I feel like coming off the bench and being a role player in the rotation is sometimes more challenging than being a starter.
Understood. Yes. And, my senior year, unfortunately, I had 2 seniors fell off. The point guard transferred. So that senior year, where I think we still could have, had another good year, it was just kind of, up and down, with no point guard and, losing a few of our key, seniors. My senior year should have been 5 seniors started. That's what it should have been if we all stayed on crew and on path to. And again, you deal with the circumstances, and I just tried to make the best of it, and and I had another great year. And I don't know if they told you, but I got from second team to third team, and all my statistics went up. Huh. So I took the plaque, and I threw it across the room at the end tape banquet because I felt like I was slated because everything went up, but the team success wasn't there. So again, as you get older, I kind of understand that. I was like, how can I go up in every category and get demoted from second team to third team? I took that plaque and I threw it across the room at the A10 banquet.
not being satisfied. You just want to continue to get better and better. That's awesome. I did not know that, actually. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you wrap up that.
Bill Cosby was the guest speaker.
Oh, really?
I threw it across.
I guess that makes it even better then.
Yeah, just good times.
For sure. You wrap up at URI, certainly, with your name in the record books. Just to crunch a few numbers here, you currently sit at 39th in the 1,000 point club in points scored. You finished your career with 1,000
in 3 years.
3 years, 1,224 career points as a Ram. Certainly an impressive and incredible college career for you, especially at URI. Do you have, a favorite memory or story that sticks out? Maybe it was a game, maybe it was something off the court. I'm sure there's so many, but anything that stands out from that time?
I've got a few stories. The NIT run was phenomenal. Back then they based on attendance. So we always had every game on the road. We felt we should have had a home game. And we had an interim AD. So he wasn't really an AD, he was interim. He didn't know that during the NIT, we weren't supposed to get the money. So every game we won, we got a bigger envelope of money. So we're literally in the huddle, at half court when you say, go Rams. We're in the huddle saying, Fleet Bank on 3. we kept getting more money every time we won. And I was just taking that environment that could have been strenuous. We made it, just us against the world. And, we beat Boston College, in overtime, in the last second shot where they were up by 15 and a half. So they had them scheduled to play Arizona State at home, thinking they were going to win. Right. We ended up back and winning. And then we got sent to Vanderbilt where I think Utah with the altitude really caught us in the second half. And we lost. But we had, 5 guys from New York. So we were all just trying to get to the Garden. That's where the NIT finished up. And then probably that NCAA run, beat Purdue with Glenn Robinson. And I never forget, during the podium, during the NCAA, you interview with the reporters, and everyone's talking about how great a matchup it would be with Purdue and North Carolina. Glenn Robinson's against North Carolina. So, I politely tapped the microphone. I said, you guys are talking about this next game. I said, they haven't even played us yet.
Yeah,
So it was so, so sweet to win that game. Obviously that's the year North Carolina wins it, and just a great team. But be on that stage, that's all you want to do is go to the dance. And
yeah,
I just remember a brotherhood too. On campus, we played together as a team. We hung out as a team. We embraced people in the community. It wasn't like we stayed in an all athletic dorm. We were all spread out on campus, and it was just a real great energy to have that school behind us. During those 3 years I was there.
yeah, for sure. Do you remember where you lived at all during that time?
Oh yeah, my freshman year I was in Gorham. Then I
Okay,
was in, I think it's at Hopkins, right? Hopkins.
that sounds right. Yeah,
And then there's had a single suite. It might have been Ellery or somewhere.
gotcha.
But
Yeah,
I
that
always said
also.
I never went down the line. And then back then I had my own key to the gym.
Yeah,
So there was times I'd be in the gym shooting 12, 1 o'clock in the night just because I always wanted to improve, and having access to the gym was part of that. So if I went out, I went and shot first. Then when I went out, then I went down the line. I went to the gym first.
yeah.
So it was good.
What was real quick? What was the go-to hangout spot for the team? Maybe on or off campus?
They had a spot called UPub, Sandcastles,
Okay.
with another one down the line. Oh, I can't believe I forgot it right now.
Was it? Was it?
Windsor's.
Okay. I've heard of Sandcastles. I think I either asked Silk or Kenny, but I asked them the same question. They said Sandcastles as well. Maybe it was Tommy Barrett too.
UPub was a death trap because if a fight ever broke out, because PC used to come, crash our party sometime, and the energy was always not, pleasant. And we had a fight break out one year with them at the UPub, and it was only one way in, one way out. So we kind of stayed out of that. But they had what we call down the line parties. Football team was always having parties, and campus. I don't think it was dry then, so we didn't have a dry campus. I think after we left, they went to a dry campus. That made it a little tougher to have a good time, but we had a blast. We had a blast.
For sure. It's an awesome school. The vibe here is it's just so cool on and off campus. I live off campus now. That's more common.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. URI is a lot of fun. So
yeah, I came back to hang out with Coutinho and Tyson. Then I came back a few times to keep Lamar, in line, and it was always good to connect with the next generation and watch them. But I was in where was I when they went to the tournament? Where was I? I think I was in Israel. I think I was in Israel when they made it to the tournament, and I watched it, and it was just great to see them have that run. So and then Tyson was my recruit my senior year. I was his host, so It was great to see both them guys succeed. And I still speak to Coutinho to this day, my young fella.
Yeah, that's awesome. A few more questions for you here, not too long. I want to talk a little bit about Coach Al Skinner. What was he like as a coach to you? Do you have any stories or memories that stick out about him specifically?
Al Skinner was, he was competitive, from even when he played, at UMass and, in the NBA. He brought that grit to all of us. And, just a blue collar work ethic, I would say we always had and always wanted to be on the court. I say our relationship was a little strained at times because I felt I should have been a starter, whether that came to play my senior year. So there was times where I would say we were all on the same page. I just felt like I could have been done more or he could have given me more. But, when you're young at that age, you think you know everything. And, now I wish I could have a few more conversations with him on what was his vision as opposed to my vision. Because I felt like if someone would have told me, hey, you need to be at the gym at 5 a.m., you need to run more, you need to lift more, I would have did it because I was the one that just wanted to always get better. I didn't really have that mentorship that I felt I could have had from the coaching staff. My favorite coaching staff there was Bill Cohen, who's now the coach at Northeastern.
Okay.
And I'm still great friends with him, and he was sort of who I went to, when things didn't go right or I felt I could have done better, or had some insight on, how to get on the court. He was my go-to. So nothing bad, just I felt like our relationship could have been better. But again, I wasn't his recruit. I transferred there. So, Carlos Cofield was the big recruit from Oak Hill that played the same position as me. So.
Yeah, it's so tough to squeeze everything into 4 years and to establish those relationships and everything. But again, it certainly panned out for you. And I've heard great stories about Coach Skinner and everything like that. And I'm sure those times were definitely a lot of fun. That run was definitely a lot of fun researching it.
Yeah, he got Coach of the Year. He got Coach of the Year over Calipari, Mike Jarvis, and John Cheney. So that'll tell you, what he brought to the table during those the 90s era.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on a little bit. So those years in that teams that you played on, just sticking with URI, I guess you would say maybe paved the way for the future of the program. You talk about the late 90s and the success with the Wheeler and Mobley era, and then a little bit later on to the 2000s, the Lamar Odom year. So when you kind of look at the current state of the program now, I don't know if you're watching from afar, you got a glimpse of, URI. Under first-year head coach Archie Miller. Obviously, it's challenging to, take over a program, or a new team and essentially just hit the restart button. But how do you see them building or progressing, in the next few seasons under Coach Archie?
So one of the things, I had a couple of conversations with alumni is you have to trust the process. Instant success is not always the best success. I think as these kids, deal with failure and get a little taste of success, that will allow him to sustain the program. And, nobody wants to go through those growing pains, but you have to. They competed at a high level against Providence. They have a little low against Brown. Like, that's going to happen as kids understand, the different intensity it takes to compete. So, I'm a fan just of, the kids that go there, and I'm a fan of watching the process. You just don't turn the switch and, at that conference, going to be a top 5 in the first couple of years. So I think he has the right attitude. I think he has the right coaching staff. I think, we just need to trust the process. And, again, recruiting is always key. But again, player development is another key. Like from my example, it was just player development over the course of 3 years, how I got to be successful. I didn't come in as All-American. So I think a few of those pieces, I think the program succeed. I think he's a high-level coach. He proved that in the past. And it's just a matter of time. And then Coach Woodward, who I know from New York, and then his playing days at Boston College, and even as a professional, and even his tenure at Seton Hall, I think they have the right staff. Just, trust the process. They got to go through some growing pains to make them men, to understand what it is to fail and what that feels like and how you want to succeed after.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think they have a lot of, fresh faces and a lot of new talent that they don't have a lot of experience at this level. So I think, give it 2 to 3 years. I know there's 3 guards on this team that are specifically listed as sophomores: Ish Leggett, Sebastian Thomas, and Brad Freeman. So give it 2 to 3 years. The veteran leadership, a guard-heavy team. I like his style is more undersized and quick guards. I think that's definitely going to help them. When you look at the teams of the past, the Dan Hurley era, same thing. Quick guards, a guard-heavy team, and a lot of veteran leadership, especially when they made those NCAA tournament runs. So, just to kind of compare and contrast a little bit, I think eventually when these guys, like you said, are more developed, they will eventually get there. So I'm definitely excited to see. I'm a senior now, but I'll be watching from afar. I'll definitely be excited to tune in and watch a competitive program compete, in 2 to 3 years from now.
Yeah, and even if you watch how Danny's built UConn, same blueprint, took him 2 or 3 years, and now UConn's top 5,
Yeah.
So I think this guy has the same pedigree.
Yeah, for sure. A few more questions. I want to talk a little bit about your post-graduation. I saw a recent interview where you talked a little bit about trying out for the Chicago Bulls. Any basketball fan knows, what the Bulls were like in the 90s. Can you just talk a little bit about those tryouts or workouts, and also like what it was like to grace the same court as Michael Jordan and some of those stars?
Man, it was humbling, first of all. And, I've never really been starstruck by anybody. But as soon as he walked in the room, it was like everything just slowed down. So, okay, there you go. That's Michael. And it was funny, my first, 2, 3 weeks, I didn't really play at a high level because I had too much respect for him. And I was fortunate enough, my locker was right next to Michael. So every day as we get dressed for practice, he's right there, and it was just a constant. I'm a guard, so every day it's either Scotty, Michael, Tony Kukoc, Ron Harper, or Steve Kerr. That's practice every day. So it was never really a day off. So to me, just to compete at that level was just a sense of a rival. I know, tough team to make, obviously. But again, I got to experience, what Phil Jackson was like. I got to see, that team knowing that they were going to be successful. That was also Dennis Rodman's first year. Yep. So just, I tell people practice was probably harder than any other game I played, during my career, just based on the position I played. But my Michael story is like he's the first one in, last one to leave. So I'm like, how am I leaving the gym and the greatest man in the world is still working out. So
Yeah.
that let me know. I thought I had a work ethic, but it let me know I had to raise it another level, based on me watching him, just every day in practice and, what he did.
Yeah, and you're fighting for a spot internally as well. So I think competing against a lot of those names that you just listed, it only makes you a better player. And, as you continue to go on and have a continued career professionally overseas, I feel like those experiences, while it may not have lasted or, as long as you may have anticipated with the Bulls,
right.
It makes you a better player going up against guys like that during practice. So I think that's definitely pretty cool.
Man, just amazing, amazing. And it was John Paxson's first year as a coach. And then one day, I'm guarding Michael, and he was upset because one day we didn't lose. And, he likes to compete in everything. So one day, whether you have 6 scrimmage games, we did not lose. It was me, Scotty, Steve Kerr, and it was another Jason Caffrey.
We didn't lose in practice. So that next day, Michael made it a point to basically destroy me. I'm hand in the face, close out, bang, basket. Close out on defense, dunk. And he's like, young fella, that's 6 or 7 straight baskets. Times 4 quarters, I got about 45 points. So my rebuttal was like, don't worry, Mike, I'll be back tomorrow. He said, but young fella, you know what? So will I. So what do you even say to something like that, man? It was right. Just to compete against him and, hear him, have the trash talk me based on me winning a few practices was just, it was humbling, but it was also, a great feeling of, that I arrived at that level, be able to compete with that man every day in practice.
Yeah, that's an incredible experience as you're talking about. To go up against someone like Michael Jordan or really anyone, he's a freaking ager. There's no athlete, there's not many at least out there that, can compare to someone like him. So just to have the opportunity to even meet him, and I'm sure he gave you some guidance and, some skills and tips along the way as well.
It's funny when I got released, they put you in what, Phil has what we call the war room. So it's like, all ancient war artifacts in the room.
Right.
And I sat in the middle, and the whole coaching staff kind of went around the room and said what they like, that I'd be a good player, et cetera, et cetera. But it's funny, then I grew a relationship with Mike, and those patent leather Jordans that came out before they came out, he gave me 2 or 3 pair and he signed them.
That's awesome.
And then he gave me all his practice stuff with number 45, which I didn't think to keep. Back then you think you belong. But he didn't want to have anything to do with 45 because that's the year he came back and they lost to Orlando. Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, take all this shit with number 45. I don't want anything with number 45. And I'm not even thinking to keep it. Like, what was I thinking? I go home and I give it out to my little brother, to everybody in the neighborhood. But it was just, to have the conversations with him and, be able to get that respect was just, it was great.
Have you kept in touch with him? Have you kept in touch with him over the years at all?
I used to see him a few times. He's real tight with Derek Jeter. So I have a home in Tampa. So for many years, Derek Jeter and Tampa, they were always in Tampa, and it was always funny running into him. Like, I remember you. It's just, it's funny. I grew up in a small neighborhood in Queens. There was 2 of us that made it as far as athletics. The other guy who made it played baseball. He was Derek Jeter's roommate.
Oh, wow.
So there was times where we were having conversation, and Michael's like, well, how do you know him? And Derek's like, how do you know him? I knew Derek from my good friend that I grew up with. And then it was just a small world to have both guys saying they knew me, out in the party. It was pretty hilarious. But he's just awesome guy, man. Awesome.
That's awesome. I'm a big Yankee fan too, so to hear that, I love.
Man, yeah. Also was on that team though was bum ass Dickie Simpkins. I didn't mean to shout out Providence like that, but Dickie Simpkins was on that team too. So it was cool to catch up with him. We always had some stories about URI PC battles, but good times.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just 3 more questions for you. You ended up playing a long professional career overseas. What did some of those experiences, teach you?
Well, I always feel like I can adapt to situations. Being put in a foreign country and not know the language and have to make friends, have to, be able to navigate through traffic and getting from around the neighborhood. So even within my career now, I always feel like, when someone says, I'm Israel, I'm from Italy, I'm from Greece. I'm like, well, where? Give me a little more details because I may have been there or I may have played there. So I think it's really allowed me just to be able to deal with so many different walks of life. Being able to travel the world. I always felt like basketball gave me a lot of opportunities. It never really define who I was. It was just a job that I got to experience the world. And I always embraced it, whether it was eating the food, learning the language, embracing the culture. Wherever I went, I was always, trying to get with locals and understand, where I was in that time and place. So it was awesome.
Yeah, I always find that so cool. I mean, being able to travel around the world, some people are not able to experience that at all, in their entire lifetime. And to do it, for your career, for your job, and that's playing basketball, the game that you love, like that's probably a dream come true to travel and see so many different places while playing basketball. Just can't imagine, being able to do that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I got a funny, I never heard of 3-a-days. I've heard of 2-a-days. In Italy, we had 3-a-days. So we had the morning run, and whether it was high, we did high altitude training, so they took us up in the mountains.
Okay.
That was the morning run. Then we came back, had a shoot around, kind of drill work, guard forwards. And then that last practice was full on live, 5-on-5.
Right.
I had never heard of 3-a-days until I got to Italy. I was like, man, this was intense. So come 6, 7 o'clock, I was in bed. Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing.
That is awesome. Currently, you're a businessman, as you can see. From the background there, you're working in the fitness industry. What do you love about, what you're doing now and your job now?
It's building relationships. Orange Theory, is global now. When I started with the company, there were only 2 in the world. Now there's 1,200. You've got some in Dubai, you've got some in Paris, you got some in Qatar, you got some in Germany. So what I love about it, whenever I travel, like I was in Rhode Island, they have, 8 to 10 in Rhode Island. So all I do is jump in class in Rhode Island. And it's the same verbiage, it's the same atmosphere. And again, I get to meet different people. So that part I love, just embracing. I went to the Cranston studio, the alumni, there was 2 female coaches, they were URI alumni. And then we look up, it was 7 of us or 5 of us in class that all went to URI. So those relationships I just enjoy, whether I'm in Rhode Island, I'm in Connecticut, I'm home in New York. It's just embracing that culture within Orange Theory. And I've watched it grow from 2 to, and hearing the stories of how people have changed their lives is just really let me know I was in the right industry. I didn't really have to apologize for the industry I was in. So it's a great feeling waking up every day knowing that, you're helping someone stay healthy.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you're bringing together a sense of community. Again, like you said, you're meeting different people with different backgrounds and you're doing what you love. So that's awesome.
It's sometimes it doesn't feel like work. I'm like, this can't be, my job. Then on the back end, when you got the business part, I say, okay, now I understand there's a business to it. But when I'm coaching or involved in that room where it's just, the clients, that's just a natural high for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Lastly, what do you want to leave the fans with who may be watching this interview at home? Anything for the Rhode Island fans or just anyone tuning in?
Well, I just hope they know I understood. I respected my 4 years at the university. I graduated. I got my degree. I received a President's Award when I graduated. And I just tried to compete and, wear the Rhody blue with pride. And, I really enjoyed competing during my tenure there. And just the fan support, was just, something that's, I'll tell my grandkids or, I'll be telling stories for years, my time in Rhode Island. So it was really great to get back, watch it grow. And it's just good to watch the next wave. And, hopefully, like we said, they put together some couple good years and, they'll come back and have these same conversations with you or whoever's in your position to share their journey at URI. So that's what I would love to just share with whoever's watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Abdul, thank you so much for, connecting with me, taking the time to do this. I look forward to hopefully staying in touch and, of course, go Rhody.
Yes, sir. I hopefully should be back. I think they're retiring Silk's number, and I'm trying to double back and be in the building for that. So if I do, I'll make sure we connect.
Yeah, for sure. That's the UMass game in February. I think I'll be broadcasting that game.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure for the student-run radio station again, WRIU. But either before or after the broadcast, I'll look out for you. I'll make sure I come over and say hello. And we'll
all right, my man.
Sure. So I appreciate it.
You got it. Best of luck to you.
All right. Same to you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.